Hey everyone, today I want to do a tier list for all of the Star Wars movies that I've seen, which is basically just episodes 1 through 9 and also the two spin offs. Um, we all know how these tier lists work. So, Grandmaster being the best, then Master, Jedi Knight, Padawan, and then Youngling being the worst. I just used the Jedi rankings, just thought that would be kind of an interesting way to do it instead of just A through F or S through D, however some people like to do it. But before I get into it, I love all these movies in different reasons. Well, maybe not love, but I like all these movies for different reasons. The only one that I haven't seen more than once is Solo. I just recently watched that for the first time, and nobody has a you know. I'm not gonna say anyone's got like a perfect ranking or a wrong ranking or a right one. I think it's just everyone likes these for different reasons or wants something out of them, uh, and I think that all of them have a lot of great things, but all of them have missed potential, and so that's just kind of how it is. Everyone has things about it they'd like to change, but I still think that there's enjoyment in all of them, at least something. So we'll get into them, starting with episode 1, Phantom Menace. This was the first one I saw in theaters, but I had seen all of them up until this point. I was 5 years old, so 99. I was born in 94. I've always liked this one a lot. I mean, there are things, obviously, like I said, that I don't like. I think it really kind of slows down once it's on Tatooine, but I still really enjoy it. And we get to see Darth Maul, and we get to kind of see how Obi-Wan is a Padawan and how the differences between him and his master Qui Gon, and how Qui Gon we learned was actually the apprentice of Dooku, who we see in the sequel, and the similarities between the two, or actually the similarities in all three of them. Um, so I think the best parts about this movie are like the lightsaber battles. But this most recent viewing, I really have to say that the thing that I watched and or paid the most amount of detail towards that I didn't so much when I was younger was the kind of like whole start of, or like how everything got to be. Because when I was a kid, it was more just about watching the explosions in action, whatever. And I've seen all these movies a lot, but around when I was like 13, 14 years old, I kind of stopped watching these. And I only watched like Revenge of the Sith and Empire Strikes Back and maybe Return of the Jedi. Um, so I really kind of like stopped with like one, two, and like some of the ones that I just didn't feel like watching all that much. And so I didn't really remember the details of how like the war starts between the Federation and the Republic, how that leads to the Clone Wars, and that leads eventually to the fall of the Republic into the Empire, and those details and how the whole time Palpatine is just behind it. Like I always knew that, but like I never really knew the details, and I found that to be actually way more interesting this time than like I was expecting. Now, obviously, like there's Jar Jar who kind of makes parts of this movie hard to watch. Um, I do think that at times, like I said, it's a little bit slow. The pod race, I don't love it, but I don't hate it. And the one thing that I'm sure someone's gonna get absolutely angry at this because I'm just not as like passionate about Star Wars as everyone else. But I kind of consider this to be the death of Darth Maul. I just never understood how Qui Gon gets like stabbed, like just through him, but then someone like a minute later can get straight up cut in half, fall down like a shaft, and they just come back to life. I never liked that. I just kind of like, okay, he's dead. Like I know you that's not technically the canon story, but like it just doesn't make sense to me. So that's how I always viewed it. Um, yeah, for me, this is in the top five for sure. I've always enjoyed it. Just kind of enjoyed it a lot more than I was expecting this time. Next was I went literally right back to back with these two. I went from uh, Phantom Menace to Attack of the Clones, and I always thought that Attack of the Clones was the worst of the prequels, and I still feel that way. Is it bad? No, I just think it suffers from like a really long runtime with a lot of downtime that is not the most well written between characters with dialogue. Um, there are things that I like, but there's just as much that I don't. And I think this one, well, the one scene that I always think about has like the most missed potential, is seeing Anakin kill those Tusken Raiders. I think it would have been like awesome to see like that first moment where he's like just uses the dark side, and I would have liked to have seen that more. So is it bad? No. Is it like in my top five? No. It's probably like sixth or something. I'm gonna put it in Jedi Knight, but I might move it down just depending on how I feel about some of these. I will put them in order of like my favorite to least favorite. Um, Next is Revenge of the Sith. I think this one is the most rewatchable of the originals, or not of the original, the prequels. I've watched this one like an insane amount of times. I don't know if I would like want to watch this one as much as I used to, but I rewatched it, or at least the main parts of it, for like this video, so I could be like remembering every little detail that I could. Um, and I kind of still would have liked to have seen the build towards him becoming Darth Vader be a little bit better, and also like once he's Darth Vader and he goes after the Jedi, like seen more of that, because we kind of just get like glimpses of it. But I would have liked to have seen him just like that scene where he like walks in and the younglings are sitting there. Like I know it's dark and it's technically kind of like a movie for all ages. I would have liked to have seen like him going, killing all the younglings, killing all the Jedi, and him with the clones just like wiping out as many people as possible. And you do get that in like the video game that I have. It's actually, I don't know, it's not right here. It's actually downstairs with my PlayStation 2, but I had it for PlayStation 2, and like that was some of the best parts of that game. It was like this is the parts that like the movie didn't have. And while this movie would have probably been like 4 hours with all that stuff, I still would have like liked to have seen it. Um, and there's a scene that I saw, or I guess I should say I heard about, that the fight between Dooku and him was supposed to be different, and the dialogue between Padme and Obi-Wan when they discuss what's happened to Anakin right before he sneaks onto her ship and she goes to see him on Mustafar was supposed to play out like a little bit differently, and how like he says that like he knows Anakin's the father, and how the council's kind of always known that, but because they care for Anakin, they don't really get in the way of him, and things like that. That I just kind of would have liked to have seen more, like I guess more natural writing than the kind of like George Lucas writing that we get. Um, but it still for me is Grandmaster, and I think is the most rewatchable. Like I said, so next is the only one that I haven't seen more than once, and that's Solo. I still enjoy it, but it does feel at times a little bit like lacking of Star Wars. Um, it was like if there wasn't the main characters like Han, Lando, Chewbacca, I would have for a lot of this been like, okay, this is more of just like a sci-fi action movie, but it still is pretty enjoyable. I will say I don't think I'll watch it time and time again like I would these other ones. Um, but I think because the lack of the Force being used a lot of times, and like the Jedi and the Sith, we only get that one scene with Darth Maul. But like I said, I've always kind of considered Darth Maul to only be that one movie. I still thought it was cool, but it was like, okay, in my eyes, he's kind of dead. So it's like I kind of always looked at it as like the ones George Lucas himself has made. That's like the ones that matter, and the other ones are just for fun. So for me, it's 1 through 6. That's all that really matters, and the other ones are like, okay, it's fun and it's like a fan film. So, but I still like Solo enough, and I thought everyone did a really good job. And then Rogue One, I would say is a little bit better than Attack of the Clones. I just watched this one last night. This was the last one I had to rewatch, and I just kind of for some reason was like watching them all out of order. It was just like whichever one I felt like at the time. Um, I do like Rogue One a lot, but I did feel like this time that again, kind of the same thing with Solo, where it was like this almost doesn't feel like Star Wars at times, but it did feel the most like the original trilogy, where it's like the moments right before A New Hope. So that was what I really liked about it. Um, the part that I didn't so much like was on the planet Jeddah, I think is what it was called. That whole part was a little bit slow, but I liked pretty much everything else. And the last like 40 minutes of that movie is really good. And the whole Darth Vader scene is like probably the coolest moment in the entire like series. Just him just hiding in the darkness, and you see just like this black fog or mist coming out of the like the dark, and then you hear the and his lightsaber ignites, and he just cuts down all these rebels. The first time I saw that when I was in theaters, I was like, "Holy shit!" I had such like a big smile on my face. I was like, "This is awesome." But yeah, so for me, Rogue One is really enjoyable. I do like it a lot, um, and I think that it connects to New Hope really well. So now, A New Hope, I am gonna put it below Rogue One, and it's honestly only because I think it's a more important movie, obviously, and it's like probably the better movie. But I think it's not as rewatchable or easily rewatchable just because it is kind of outdated. But it's still like a really good movie. Like when I watch it, I'm never like, oh, this is boring so much as it's just like I know how it's already gonna play out. So it's almost like that first little stretch where they're on Tatooine. It's like I want to get going a little bit faster. But once they're on the Death Star, that movie's great. The whole trash compactor scene, and then the Obi-Wan versus uh, Darth Vader fight, and then all the way at the end with the Death Star attack. And so, I mean, yeah, it's all really good. But this one of the originals is a little bit harder to watch for me just because it is a little bit slow. So it's going to go there. And then everyone's pretty much, well, not everyone's, but a lot of people's favorite, and for good reason. Empire Strikes Back. This is my favorite. Every time I rewatch it, it's kind of like there's not a moment of downtime where I'm like, oh, this is boring. I'm like, this is great pretty much the whole way through. We kind of finally get to see, like, I think Darth Vader is like, I think this is his peak of like the movies where he's actually in the suit. Um, he doesn't, you can tell he doesn't want to like kill Luke in their fight, and he kind of underestimates him at first, but then soon as like he starts to actually take the fight seriously, he just kind of like beats on Luke. And I thought that was like interesting. Like I hadn't watched it in a while, so it was nice, kind of like, oh, these are details that I hadn't caught whenever I was younger. But yeah, there's not much that needs to be said about that one. I don't have anything negative to say. And then Return of the Jedi is also in my. It's kind of tough where to put this one though for me. I think I'll put it up with here because I do really like it, and honestly, I would even almost say Phantom Menace is up there. I will actually put Phantom Menace up there. So these are like the four that I would say are the best for me. Um, and I think for like good reason, they're my favorites. Like everything that I like about them, it's like a very standout moment. With Return of the Jedi, I really just like that whole. We see what Luke was in the last two movies and how he matures into like a Jedi. And I don't know why I just always liked Luke with the green saber a lot more than the blue. Um, I always it's like a weird thing with me where I like to see what color lightsaber fits the person. And I speaking of that, I have a video coming out that I just recently bought a like replica lightsaber, we'll say, and I'll do a video on that soon as it comes in. But yeah, anyway, there's a lot in this one that I enjoy, but it does have the Ewoks, which I don't hate. I just logically, it kind of doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But still, the thing that I've always found to be, ever since these sequels have come out, it almost makes this movie kind of pointless to me. It's like, well, what's the point if ultimately everything goes back to the way it was like 10 years later, if it's now the First Order instead of the Empire? But if that comes back, then like what was the point of all of this? And it's like it's still a really good movie, but it's almost diminishes it now that we have these sequels. That's how I've always felt. And that's kind of why I said earlier that like for me it's the George Lucas movies that are the real important ones, where the other ones feel like fan fiction. So these next ones, that is how I'm going to feel. Um, And starting with The Force Awakens, I don't like it at all, honestly. I mean, I shouldn't say at all, but I just feel like it's like a really bad copy of A New Hope. Um, just, I don't know, like, Ray's okay. Like, none of the characters do I hate as much as some people, but, like, Ray just feels like a less interesting version of Luke. I still like her. Kylo feels like a less interesting Darth Vader, but I do have to say that his look is pretty sweet, and I like his lightsaber a lot. I think he could have been a way better villain. I do like the developing like connection with the Force that him and Ray had, but I kind of think that it definitely could have been better, and that's all these especially these sequels that they have so much missed potential. Do they have enjoyment in them? Yes, but is there a lot of dumb crap in them? Yeah. So um, I don't know. It's like Han really makes this movie. I'm not gonna lie. I almost want to put it in Padawan, but I almost just kind of like it where it is. Um, yeah, you know what? I'm just gonna leave it there. I'm gonna say actually this. We'll do this. I'm gonna put Last Jedi. I know this is kind of controversial, but I'm gonna put Last Jedi almost equally. It's probably not with Force Awakens. I think honestly, there's moments in both of them that are good, and there's moments in both of them that are just stupid. Um, I actually really like the way Ray looks in this one, like her outfit with her like. I think it like I don't know, it just like matches her character a lot. Um, and then Kylo Ren, how I don't remember if it's this one or the third one where he like reforges his helmet. I thought that was really cool. I think this one took a lot of like steps in the right direction, but also like 10 steps backwards in other directions. Where it's like I said, the connection between Kylo and Ray, I think is cool. And I actually don't hate that he kills Snoke. What I hate is that when he becomes the leader of the First Order, he doesn't just become this like most savage Sith Lord. And I think that he should have like Sith lightning, and he should just be like total evil. And I don't think he should ever turn back to Ben Solo. Like I think that he should just stay the Sith, and whether he wins or loses, I don't really care. I don't have a problem with it either way, but I don't think Palpatine should have ever been brought back. And I think that just he should have been the new like leader of the First Order, and he would have been like 10 times a better villain. Like in the first one, he just feels like he's a pissed off teenager, like a moody teenager. And this one, he feels like he's a little bit more of an adult, and he should have like continued with that and taken over. And I would have been more okay with it. And I really feel like because of that, what the last one did just sucked. Like there's so many things in it that I was like, that just doesn't make any sense. And I mean, like I said, the Last Jedi has so many stupid parts, and that whole casino section is like, why is this really in here? Um, but the Rise of Skywalker is just like, I didn't feel like the lightsaber battles were all that great. The whole like, I thought it was interesting with Rey kind of being on the verge of turning, but the reason I thought was always kind of stupid was because she was a Palpatine and she was like afraid of her dark side power, which I guess I don't mind her like I said having that dark side in her. Um, but I just kind of feel like the reason with it being because she's the granddaughter of Palpatine was stupid. But one thing I also wanted to mention now that I think about it in The Last Jedi was the scene where Finn charges at the like giant like cannon thing on the planet. I don't remember the name of it. It's that planet with like all the salt with like the red underneath. He charges right at the cannon, and then I forget her name. I don't know the girl that he has a kind of like connection with in that movie. Um, comes and like knocks him out of the way at the last second. Like I think it would have been just better as if he finally like his character always felt like he was waiting to have like his moment, and that was going to be his moment. Like he finally has a purpose. because otherwise he really doesn't have much of one other than introducing Rey to the whatever they are, the rebels, and it just was like this could have been his real moment. Like he sacrifices himself for something to take down the First Order that turned him or almost made him into something that he wasn't. And I think that would have been a really good scene, but I really don't remember her name. Rose, that's actually it. I knew I was like going through the alphabet in my head, and finally I hit R, and it was like, oh, Rose. Rose, just kind of a pointless character. I felt like I didn't dislike or like her. It's just like, okay, could have been definitely more interesting, but whatever. And so, I can't really say all that much positive about the last one. I kind of like that we see more of the Knights of Ren, but I kind of would have liked to have seen it more if instead of him killing them, like we get a scene where Rey is fighting all of them, and then it ends up being this like final battle between Kylo and Rey, and I don't know, something could have been better. I feel like she was too powerful and he wasn't strong enough, and they should have been like the first one should have been more of her like slowly becoming a Jedi, like her realizing she has the power, like in A New Hope, and then the Last Jedi should have been like her training with Luke, and the way they kind of always portrayed Luke in that movie was always terrible. I thought, and then in in Rise of Skywalker, she is kind of reached like what Luke was in Return of the Jedi. So that's how I feel about these movies. Do I hate any of them? No, but those last three sequels I do think are just very weak, poor. Like the writing was, they didn't have a plan from the start, and they were just like, all right, let's just make money and sell toys and merchandise and things like that, which they did come up with some cool characters. They just never really made them into what they could have been. Captain Phasma looks pretty freaking cool. Never did anything with her. I'm trying to think. Other than Kylo Ren, I think is the coolest looking like character we've seen since Darth Maul, and not having him be more with having Adam Driver as Kylo Ren, it's like kind of just disappointing. And I do actually find Rey to be enjoyable enough. I just think that they make her too powerful. I think honestly, how if I'm thinking right now, how I would have liked to have seen it happen is like Poe and like I liked Poe a lot. He was probably like the best character that he never felt like he was poorly written, or he felt like he fit like the character that they made him be. And so I would have liked it if they did that attack on like the planet or what, I don't even really remember, but like let's just say the giant planet in the first one doesn't get blown up, that was like the new Death Star, and the third one is like them attacking it, and Rey and Kylo Ren are having their fight, and Kylo Ren basically like gets the upper hand, beats her because he should beat her honestly, but instead of like her dying by him so much as she does kind of die by him, but ultimately it's more of like she, I don't really know how to say it. She kind of like distracted him long enough for the rebels or whatever they were called in that to kind of like do something to blow up the station. And like she sacrifices herself for the Force or whatever you want to say. And it's like, I just think that Kylo Ren should have never turned back to the light side, and he should have just progressed as a more evil villain. And you all get my point. I've been going on about it long enough, so that's my ranking. I will see you at that video soon. I'm looking forward to getting that lightsaber in. It's pretty cool. I've been looking for like the perfect lightsaber, and this is about as perfect to me as it's gonna get. There's one tiny little like, I wouldn't say flaw, but thing that I don't know if I'm gonna absolutely love about it, but we'll see. I just like the way it looks. It's got a really cool design. So appreciate everyone watching. Let me know what your ranking is, and I'll talk to you guys soon.